Okay, raise your hands right now if you feel like your technique is perfect. You're good. That's what I thought. Technique is usually one of those things that I think everybody feels a little bit self-conscious, worried about. Feels like, gosh, I wish I was better at this. You watch a video of the latest performer doing some crazy feat at some speed that you never knew was possible, and you just feel horrible again. You're like, okay, I guess I was actually practicing my scales or whatever else I need to do to get faster. But I think technique is, unfortunately, for a lot of people, one of those things that we kind of just dread having to do. You know, it's just, it's like, you know, you ask your students, you know, how many of you did your practice this week? How many of you did your technique? How long did you spend on it? And many of them are like, oh, I kind of didn't do it, or I didn't do it very long, or, you know, maybe I did a few minutes of it, but it's always the drag, isn't it? You know, it's never the thing they really want to spend time on. The college students are often a little bit different. They're the ones who are like, okay, I'm at this point in my life where I want to get better, I want to get the biggest, fastest pieces. But often with the young students is learning to inspire them. So it's often a process that we have to figure out how to get them to enjoy it. But I also realized that there's some sounds in this presentation. This is a little bit old. Let me see if it's still in there. It might be really loud. Oh, it didn't come out. It's only coming through here. It's a little crying sound. But anyway. Yeah, sometimes it can also be painful, especially if we're doing things wrong. How many of you have ever had a performance-related injury while playing piano? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, more hands are coming up. Yeah, definitely. We are actually bringing in, oh gosh, what's her last name? It's Giselle. I'm trying to remember. She's coming from Florida, but she's essentially a specialist who works on helping students avoid injury. And she's coming down to BYU this year. And part of the reason we're having her come is because so many pianists they get injured in the course of doing 6-7 hour practice days, or if they're getting ready for a big competition, or simply if they're starting a new piece that it offers a lot of technical challenges they don't really know how to address. And so they find themselves playing the newest Chopin scherzo that they haven't played before, and before they know it, my arm hurts, or my back hurts, or you know, I can't feel my arm, whatever it might be, right? And so it's important, I think, that we talk about technique, both from the perspective of wanting to strengthen ourselves, but also understanding how to do things correctly. Now, my purpose of this presentation is really just to show you that technique doesn't have to be something that we dread or that it's painful. It can actually be our favorite part of our practice sessions if we make it so, okay? Now, you have to approach things in a healthy way. That's a big part of what I want to do. And there's also a few tips to just build your technique, have fun, and not feel like a mindless robot in the process. I really feel like our biggest problem with technique is we view it as, this is where I turn off all of my brain and I just play and play and play, and then I can turn it back on again once I'm through technique. And that is not correct. We need to always be musicians, even through our technique. So, having fun is not counterproductive. This is my first caveat before we really get started. There may be some oppositional thought to this process, viewing it as counterproductive or a waste of valuable practice time. To that I said, technique should never be all work and no play. This is a major reason why too many students, I think, in the instrument just rebel and they quit because they just feel like it's going through the motions. So we must keep the joy of learning even during our technique practice, otherwise we're waging a war against boredom, pain, or something in which we're eventually bound to lose. I really like this quote of Einstein: creativity is intelligence having fun. I really like that idea. It's not enough to simply have intelligence. It's being creative, it's having fun with it. Let's do that with our technique. Now, number one, how many of you stretch before you either play, before you teach, before you practice? Or is stretching one of those things that you're like, not really, don't get to it often? Okay, let's do it just a little bit. You guys can stand, you can sit, you can do whatever you want. I'll stand, of course, because it's easier to see, okay? But I think it's important that we do a few simple stretches to make sure, especially if you're going to launch into something that is quite physically daunting. And it doesn't have to be Chopin, it doesn't have to be this. There's plenty of things which are even closer, smaller in the hand, which can cause strain and injury if we're not stretched first, okay? So anybody have a few stretches? Are some of their favorites? Do you guys like to do? Yeah?
I have a good one where you grab the tip of your hand and then you just...
Yes.
That sucker is mean.
Yes,
Yeah.
That is a good one. Actually,
That's like the go-to for me.
Let me pull this up here really quick. So that one is this one here at the end. This is our forearm extensor stretch, right? Or excuse me, it is the forearm flexor stretch. So this is just, and I want you to know, anytime you do these, don't pull really hard. Do it gently. Go to a point where you start to feel that extension. Now I want your arms straight. It's hard to do in a suit, but feel that extension. The older I get, the better this feels.
Or if you go
so
down
nice.
though, you go down and do a rotation down.
Correct, and there's
Yeah.
coming this way as
Yeah,
well.
and then I feel like you feel that
Right.
more up your arm where, you know.
Right, yeah, there's a few different ways in which we can approach it. There's forwards, there's down,
Yeah.
and then of course there's this way, right? Where we feel this stretch, and you should feel that up this part of the arm. How many of your students have felt pain right through here after practicing a lot of heavy octaves,
Yeah.
right? Can you imagine going into a gym and just picking up, 100 pounds and just immediately going, no, why would we do that? And why do we do that here at piano, right? We take these huge things and we try to lift them up without doing any kind of stretching beforehand. It makes no sense. So do some stretches. Oh, that feels so good, okay? And this doesn't take that long. It could literally take you, 2, 3, 4 minutes. But I've never been to a choir rehearsal where there wasn't stretches first. Choir musicians just seem to get this, right? We don't do this in band or orchestra, but choir members are always doing it. All right, here we go. We're all here. Welcome. It's good to see you. It's just a totally different group of people. Same thing in theater. They recognize they're going to be using their bodies in a way that you might even consider athletic. They have to be loose. They have to be free. There's also, I think, a real mental component as well of release. So, stretching, super duper important. Of course, just some simple side-to-side stretches are good. Neck and shoulder stretches. So, we could do this for a good 20 minutes and have a lot of fun with it. But lo and behold, I think it's important that you've got to do some stretches. Okay? The Art of Practicing by Madeline Bush. Has anybody read this book? This has got a few other really great suggestions in it for more stretching tips. Okay? Scales. We can't get past it. We can't not do it, guys. It's got to be there, right? However, when you practice your scales, it does not have to be a process that is simply going through the motions, right? Let me ask you guys, why do we learn scales? What's its primary purpose or function? Yeah?
Because music is made of scales.
It's like one of the most basic building blocks, right? It's how we're going to create stuff. But as a technical process, let's just say, hey, I learned all of my scales 20 years ago. Aren't I done? And do I have to ever do them again, right? What do you think? Should I keep doing them? Call it good? Yeah? No?
Runners keep running.
Yeah.
They help us work through the up and down, there's rotation, there's
Huh.
thumbs involved.
Yeah.
A lot of the techniques that we use anywhere can be done in scale.
You got it. So it's not simply a process of knowledge, it's a process also of developing and keeping the hands in good physical shape, right? It's another reason why we do it regularly. So I don't want you to think of the scales simply as a process of either keeping the hands warmed up or of just learning where all the notes are on the instrument. Certainly we need that, and we need to feel comfortable with both of those things at all times. But it is essentially a place to where we feel like we can become one with how the piano works in every facet, both technically and, of course, topographically. Now, I think that scale work can be a lot of fun if you try a few different things with it, okay? Obviously, we can sit down and we can play just play our scales up and down. We can make sure they're nice and strong. I'm getting ahead of myself. How many of you studied with a teacher who taught equal sound and tone on every single finger? How many of you believe this or work on this yourselves? Okay? This is an age-old battle. It goes all the way back to Paris in the 1830s of people who we would call the steel-plated fingered pianists, which was most people, and Chopin, who did not believe in that and was very, very critical. I'll share a very funny quote at some point soon about that as well. But I think there is something to be said of, do our scales also need to be loud, heavy, big, high, loud fingers? I think there's room for that. I think there's also room for other things. But we can also, I think, explore shaping. Flexibility as well in the way that we approach scales. They don't always have to be a rigid, perfectly in time exercise, although certainly that is helpful and needed. So here's a few thoughts. Start with B major. I think we heard a little bit about this in a presentation today. Sort of like, oh, do I start on C? Do I not? How many of you have started a student on their very first scale, one octave scale, not a 5-finger pattern, a 1-octave scale with B major? Oh, I'm proud of you guys. It's scary. It's really scary. You're like, C major is so much simpler, and I want to scare them off, and they want me like, okay, we're canceling our monthly payment. It's like, no, see ya. B major. It's possible, I promise. Okay, now, What did Chopin say was the most comfortable, ergonomic place on the keyboard? But where specifically in B major? There's a part of it. Yeah, you got it. It's 5 fingers. Can you guys guess? That one right there. E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B. If you put your third fingers, right, your middle fingers here, and then here, that is the most ergonomic place for the hand on the keyboard. It fits the hand. Thank goodness whoever designed this keyboard understood that, right? There have been people who have advocated, why don't we just put it all white keys? In fact, I think I've seen a few like this. I think there was a piano that came out of Asia, and it's all white keys. And I was like, oh my goodness, can you imagine? You have no more pivot notes. You have no more things to help the hand maneuver in and around different places. Oh, it would be so hard. And I think I remember they were playing Dr. Greta Parnasso, and trying to figure that out with no black keys. I thought it would be so scary. So we're gonna watch a short little video by Eric Olson, and I'll just caveat this by saying, I didn't know I wanted to be a serious pianist until I saw him play live when I was young. He came to Modesto High School, which is just down the road from me, and he played a program of all Busoni, just Busoni transcriptions. That's all it was. And of course, my goodness, it was huge. It was amazing. And I never really knew that technique could be that colossal and that defined, and music could be that hard. But let's listen to his thoughts real quick. This is a much larger video. I'll just play the first part, talking about B major. Oh, I don't know if you're going to hear it. I don't know how to get the sound over there.
Number 13.
Can you hear that?
Avoiding the C major. Chopin wrote very few pieces in C major. Sometimes it's unavoidable, like the 24 Preludes, where he has all the major and minor keys. The first etude is in C major. It was very common to teach kids, it still is very common to teach kids, starting on C major, starting with middle C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Rather than recommending the C major scale, Chopin preferred the B major scale, which starts with these 2 fingers on black keys, which are extended, then the thumb. So you get that very relaxed position where the hand is on and of the keyboard. Of course, it's not possible to write all the music you want to write just for the comfort of the hand in mind, but nevertheless, he kept it in mind. And in the 4th scherzo, there's a very brilliant passage which, yes, is very difficult, but fits the hand and the keyboard perfectly. And I'll show it to you in slow motion. So it's not that I advocate or he advocated playing absolute flat fingers, but this way you don't have to torture yourself.
Okay, so I love that explanation of C major is torture. And if you understand what he's trying to say with that, with so many other keys, we are unnaturally so moving our fingers into a cramped space in order to make them work, right? Within the topography of the instrument, right? So if I'm playing, for example, E flat, or so maybe E major, right? I feel these places to where I'm going to have a little bit of excess curve. We get so used to it, we get so comfortable, we get so strong with it, and yet it's not as ergonomic as possible when the hand is just perfectly relaxed. I don't know about you, but my hand doesn't just go here. It goes here, right? There's a natural curve. But C major and others force us to be just a little bit more curved that I think is nice and comfortable and ergonomic. So I like starting with B major. I think it's a great place. Now, other things we can do. Patrice's lectures.
She had a student recital scheduled before.
Okay. But I really enjoyed her lecture today where she was talking about just figuring out how to make sense of that group 1 fingering. You have your start note, and what was like doors, I think is what she said, right? Then 3s, then 1 and thumb, yeah. And then 3s, doors again, right? I've done something very similar to that with all of my young students, and it's been very, very helpful just to make sense of that, because it is one of the hardest things, getting the hands together in scales in the very beginning. And if they can get past that, we can really get to a lot of really fun things, but you've got to make sense of that. By the way, I usually teach scales in 3 groups. How many people teach their scales in groups? Yeah, got a few? So what would we put into group 1?
E major?
C, C, G, D, A, E. Those 5. Those 5 keys, all white keys, all use the same finger. right? So that fingering we just talked about, across the board, we'll be able to do it. And the parallel minders also work. But when I go to group 2, things become a little interesting. What do I have here? Anybody know?
B, F sharp, C.
We have the remaining white keys, so we're going to have F and B. But then what else would I maybe fit into this? I'll give you a hint. Every single one of these has thumbs that align.
F sharp and C sharp.
Right? So F sharp or D flat, right? And then C sharp or D flat, right? Now, there's one more that you can put into this group, but it likely will challenge your fingering at first, and then it'll be great. I'll just write it. This is an option, but you don't have to. B flat.
Yeah.
How many of you play your B flat scale in a way in which the thumbs align? Yeah? Can you be our guinea pig real quick?
I teach that sometimes.
Yeah. I have to admit, I didn't grow up with it this way.
Yeah, I didn't either.
But I just happened to be passing by Dr. Holden's office at BYU, and he was saying, if you want your B flat scale faster, try putting the thumb on the C, not on the D. And I thought, well, that's strange. Why would I do that? And then I started it. I said, oh, wait a second. I go, thumbs together. 2, 3, thumbs together. Oh. And it just zip, off it went. And I thought, that's really cool. My fingers, still to this day, even after 10 years of trying it over and over and over, will still go 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3. I can't stop them. But it's a really fast way of playing the scale. So that would be group 2. The thumbs always are together. It's so easy to memorize them, and I honestly think that they're some of the easiest scales that we get to play, B major among them. And then what's our final group? This is the oddball group, in my opinion. It's just whoever's left, right? Who do we have?
The flats.
So we've got E flat, right? A flat, and we could have B flat, but if we put it there, I think we're done, right? I think we got them all. Did I forget anything? No, I think so. And those ones have some very interesting combinations, right? Including maybe a 4 on the 2 black keys, which we're not used to. Okay. Now, anybody know what a tucking exercise is when you're working through scales? Oh, when I entered my master's degree, I wanted faster scales. I listened to a student the first day I came. He was practicing in, old building. What was it? E400. That was the name of that room. And I heard his scales. He was doing Tchaikovsky piano concerto, and they were so fast and brilliant and beautiful. And I had just opened the door. I didn't care. I said, "What are you doing? How are you playing your scales like that?" And I watched what he was doing, and I just thought, I don't understand how you cultivated that. And he says, one of the first things that I do is I develop a tucking exercise and make sure that it's part of everything I do. So imagine you're just working in D major. And as you start, as soon as you're no longer on thumb, you tuck it immediately. Play the next thumb, tuck it immediately. Put it underneath. Never let it be hanging out here. Let it go underneath immediately. And I said, why is that important? He says, the only reason you can't play a fast scale is your thumb is lazy. And it doesn't want to get where it needs to be fast enough. So if you want to be able to play that scale, the thumb has to shape up. And so I started doing this exercise of just putting it in. And it's a slow exercise. It's not fast. You do this very slowly, and you just get that thumb underneath. The other part of it is this. I like to call it run the thumb. Some people call it preparations. But you start from the top of the hand, so from the pinky, and you run down to the thumb, and you hold. Now, what are we doing during that hold? Anybody got an idea? I'm preparing the next finger. Now, the job of it is not to do this, right? No, it's to make it go immediately there. And we want to get rid of what I like to call McDonald's arches. So I don't want to see these huge arches up in the air when the finger comes across. I want to see a very flat, quick motion over. So I'm over the F sharp. I'm over the C sharp. So 2 parts that are really important. Zip to the thumb, and it should feel very natural. I'm not trying to force it, because, let's see. Can I borrow you real quick? Can you try something for me? Just play C up to G fast. Yep, just zip faster, 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 faster. Yes, right there. Now, that was the speed. That's how fast you're playing this. But we only had to go 5 notes. What if I said go like this? That's all right. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Yeah, slower, right? So again, it's the thumb's the problem. Try this. Yeah, just let it go. Yeah, the fingers are naturally really fast. Even young pianists have a very fast hand if they let the fingers fall naturally. But what comes hard is that. Can you try that? See down here. Yeah. Wait, I'm start on the. Yes, do you see this? Right? That's the thing we have to work on. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay? So, yes, bravo, bravo. So, when it comes to technique, often the things that we see as huge problems are often little tiny wedges that are in there. And if we can learn to figure out what those are and fix them, often things just release and they go much, much faster. So, tucking and preparations, those were one of the first things I learned in my master's studies. They made a huge difference. And I went from playing my scales, I think at about 152, maybe 160, 208 by the time I left. It's at 60s. That was my goal, was to get all the way to the bottom of the metronome. There was no more numbers. And so I was able to do that comfortably in every scale. Now, fun things you can do. How many of you do polyrhythm scales? Does ever do this? Oh, it's so much fun. Ever tried that? Yeah, a few, right? Now that's, of course, a little bit harder. The simple one is this. Just eighth notes and quarters. Harder would be, like for example, I can do eighths, but I can maybe do... Or, oh, let's see if I can do this one. It's been a while. That's 3 against 4. That one's a real pain. But it's really fun to figure it out. And then, of course, you can do the other way around. You have to spread your hands a little farther, and then you start doing it, and eventually the left hand will catch up with the right. It's sort of an exciting little process. Now, additive scales. This is another way of, I think, building comfort with the fingering. So let's just say I'm getting comfortable with I'm just building one at a time. Now, what's my purpose of that process? Is it tone? Is it, what am I trying to get? I'm really just trying to get comfort with the notes, with the topography, the fingers, right? And so, what do you notice about my tempo just now? It was flexible. I wasn't worried about going, no, it's not what I'm trying to get. I'm trying to really get my brain to understand the feeling of the notes. Highlight a note a little bit more, I might slow down on it. And so I'm trying to be very clear and cognizant with my choices. Remember that article I shared earlier, Noah Kageyama article, the top things practicers do differently. One of the main things that really struck me in that one was that the greatest practicers, or at least in this study that they did, often were aware of when a mistake was either about to happen, or when it did happen, they immediately started fixing things. They didn't go, oh, that happened, and just keep going, right? They would fix it. And sometimes they would preempt things by being flexible in their speeds. And to me, this was like an aha moment for technique. I thought, so how often do I have a student come back, and the fingering didn't get better, it didn't stay the same, it got worse. How did that happen? Did you practice? They're like, yeah, I really did. And we have a tremendous opportunity, and Chopin refers this even in his own words about learning his own etudes, of either improving our technique with technical studies or making it worse. We can actually undo good technique through the process of technical study if it's done incorrectly or if it's done detrimentally. So one of the most important ways that we need to do it is to make sure that we're not making constant mistakes. Okay? We have to be aware of methods in which just force us into the wrong notes or to a tense playing style and so forth, right? Okay, metronome climb challenge. This is always fun to do with a friend, but feel free to do this on your own. I have students who just do this as a challenge with each other. But just say, okay, let's just start a metronome at, say, 80. And then they both play it. All right, now we're going to 92. And then they try it. And then just keep going, they keep going, they keep going. And someone will call out a scale, and then they'll both try it. It's kind of like a game of horse, but with a scale, right? So it's okay, let's see if you can do You know, the G major at 172, okay, and then off you go. So that's just a little bit of a fun way in which you can challenge yourself. And of course, you can do it successively, so you can see where's my limit today. So it's just naturally building it. And then this musical meandering is essentially what you heard me doing a moment ago. It's the process of playing through scales in a musical way. How often have you had a student play, say, a nocturne, or songs without words, Mendelssohn, or even just a Beethoven slow movement, and the phrase is just bangy and loud, or it's flat and has zero shape, and you're thinking, okay, I just need you to shape it. I just need you to have some musicality in the line. Okay, nothing. And you're thinking, okay, what do I do here? Why don't you think of this being really loud, really steep in that shape, and then we get one loud note, oh, good. Back to flat. How do I? Well, where's the switch in the brain? And I think a big part of it comes right back to what Chopin was saying. When people practice their scales in no other way than flat, just getting those fingers equal all the time, right? It builds in the brain and in the hands an idea that scale work, right, passage work, is flat. Okay? So, does it strengthen the hand? Sure it does. But if that's all you ever do with your scale work, without realizing it, you are reinforcing this feeling and thought, and just you're sensitive to the idea that it should all be the same. And I know when I studied with certain professors who really wanted shape and line, and I wasn't producing it, they would sit down and they would play, and I'd see a level of flexibility and sensitivity that just I could tell I didn't have. It wasn't ingrained in me. Now, I wondered why that was. I can skip forward to it. How many of you guys know your pedigree of who your teachers studied with and so forth? Going back, yeah? You got a list? Yeah? No? It's pretty fun to look at. Let me see. Mine's probably further down this list. I'll get there in a second. I can trace mine all the way back to Bach, which is really fun. Okay? You just go teacher to teacher to teacher to teacher to teacher to teacher, and it's really fun to see. And if you studied with any of a particular, just say, luminary in piano or organ or wherever, and you know who their teachers were, back and forth you go, right? It's like an ancestry for, accounts for piano. It's kind of fun. But I think it's important to know where we've come from as musicians. And our technique is largely built from many of the things that they've said and cultivated themselves. Okay, we'll get to that. Let's talk about cadences and improv. Well, cadences and chord improv. So, how many of you teach cadences? This is like bread and butter, right? I mean, if you don't teach cadences, that's surprising. We've got to be able to do that. Now, of course, let me go to the next slide. You can see that very simple cadence structure, right? So pretty much everybody's learned these. Do you guys teach them in inversion as well?
Yeah.
Yes, good. It's just, you got to know. Now, someone said a moment ago, why teach scales, or why do scales? It's because, that's right, it's one of the most important building blocks, right? It's what we build our technique from. But cadences is one of the most important building blocks of harmony, right? We often call these what?
Primary chords.
Primary chords, primary triads, right? 1, 4, and 5. So, doing those comfortably, but then, of course, in every key. Now, it's enough for them to learn it. And it's funny enough, when I get students who haven't played for a long time, they come back to the piano, the scales are often really rusty, but the cadences are strong. I've always noticed that that's like really good. It sticks in the hand. But how much do we do with cadences outside of just playing them in our technique? You guys ever try any exercises with them? Any fun things? Yeah, what did you try?
Plug for the AIM program. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
With all the improv stuff and the harmonization stuff in the keyboard skills areas. They're using all the stuff. It's fantastic.
Excellent. Good. How many people are using the AIM program currently, or go through AIM? Ooh, lots of opportunities. Fantastic. I saw a hand back here. One of the students back here in the back row, raise your hand. Yes?
I was just going to say, new folk tunes.
Do folk tunes? Yes. Awesome. That is so important. One of the first things I ever did with cadence chords was Happy Birthday, right? Just... Now, I teach a lot of improvisation and jazz and things like this, but my basic comfort from it came from an early age because my teacher not only taught me all my cadences and all my scales, but she made me learn to transpose comfortably. So I had to play Happy Birthday in major and minor. And I had to do it in every key. So the more comfortable I got playing Happy Birthday in every single key, the more I felt like there was no more limitations. And it started from just cadences, but then I learned to do more things. I would arpeggiate, I would grow the texture. I would make it into essentially a game of, can I play this simple idea anywhere, right? You guys know what a vocalise is? Yeah, what's a vocalise?
It's a singing piece. Like it's usually piano and a voice.
Yeah.
But like there are some vocalises that are just for piano. And
Good, fantastic. So in the piano realm, we have some pieces of vocalise, Rachmaninoff, of course, and chief among them comes to mind. But in the actual singing world of exercises, a vocalise is something that a singer will do to stretch their voice. They will sing the same idea, and they'll go up, and they'll go up, and they'll keep bringing it up. And often the main trick of the teacher is to not tell them the key. And so it's every single week, it's like, what key was that when they hit their final high note? It was a G sharp. Oh, it was a little better than last week. Good. And so it's the constant process of just feeling the same feeling, but a little bit higher, a little bit differently. So when we do cadences, and we keep trying them in different places, different keys, different textures, we build on, of course, that ability to transpose and to modulate, but also just feel comfortable with that basic building block anyway. What else can we do? Oh, how comfortable are you guys at just playing your triads in every key? C major is not so bad, right? What if I say go to G? Woo! Sorry, I'm standing up, it's hard. Okay? How comfortable are you playing all of your triads in every key? And by the way, do you recognize or remember, of course, what's the order, right? We have our tonic, supertonic, median, subdominant, dominant, submedian, leading tone, and so forth, right? So it's major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. And so being able to play those chords in succession in every key. How many of you feel comfortable with that? Okay, good, fair few. If not, that's a good thing to review. It's one of those early things we learn, but maybe not one of those things that we really work hard to develop comfort in. Does that make sense? I feel like it's part of our theory books, maybe a part of some of our technical regimens, but then we kind of just leave it. And I'm always kind of amazed when I'm working with students, especially more advanced students. I say, okay, what chord is that? Not sure. You play it, and they play it. It still sounds really unfamiliar to them. And I'm like, really? I mean, what is that? Major, minor? No, it's like, no, it's diminished. But it's so foreign. And to me, it's part of this process that we just simply didn't work on our chords enough. We didn't cycle through learning what all of those chords were. And of course, playing them comfortably in every key. So this to me is really big. And then of course, when you're comfortable with that, create a little improv with it. So maybe, comfort within the chords. Okay. Arpeggios for the win. I love arpeggios. It's just one of those things that's fun to play, and it sounds really impressive. Now, if you're really good with your chords, right? Eventually, it's only natural to start rolling them or to arpeggiate them, right? We start with just a small little triad, and then it grows to beyond the octave. How many of you feel like your arpeggios are okay, but you almost always, at least once a repetition, once a try, and hit one wrong note? Anybody's in that realm? Anybody want? Okay, well, I want one of you guys in the back. Someone come up here and try this. Yes, come on over. Let's give him a round of applause. Let's get him excited. Let's get him excited. We're going to see if we can fix that. Okay? So, pick a white key arpeggio. A major. Okay. No instruction. Let's just see how it goes. Ready? Give it your best shot. 4 octaves up and down. Okay, good, not bad. Just to make sure, warm up. you try it one more time?
Yeah.
Slow it down even. Good. Okay. So we slowed it down. We focused even harder, and yet those pesky little cracks are still there, right? Any suggestions on how we get those out? Yeah?
I think Dr. Shumway used to say, drive like turn a steering wheel.
Good. Yes, it's exactly right. Who said? I talked to someone recently who said they started with Lenora Brown. Who was that? Right here. Fantastic. What does Lenora Brown often like to say?
Same thing.
Yeah, say drive a car. I've also heard her say.
Move your elbows.
Yeah.
Let your elbows move.
I heard her say a pendulum. Imagine a pendulum. When last time I talked to her about this, but it's the same kind of idea, right? It's this. There is a slight turn. This angle is important for several reasons. One, it makes it ergonomic or comfortable for the thumb to tuck, and it also makes it a lot easier for us to focus in the direction we're moving. What should be leading of this whole mechanism? What's leading? The arpeggio. Is it the wrists? Fingers?
Yeah, I'd say wrist or elbow.
Elbow. Yeah, we want to lead from here, right? Now, I'm not sure if this was an Irene Perry-Fox thing or a Christy Perry-Fox thing, who's her daughter, but have you ever heard that concept of diamond arms? Have you ever heard this before? So just put your hands out in front of you like this. Touch your fingers together. And I want you to feel a little bit of inward and outward, exactly, right? Not way out here, not too close, just slightly open, right? I know my colleagues after Holton like to say, open armpit, all right, OAP in their score. But there should be a little space here. So as if you imagine you had a pencil underneath your arm, that would fall out as you just slide it over, okay? Now back to the keyboard. Now we're going to lead with the elbow, but I want you to keep this shape. This does not lead. It doesn't do this. Doesn't do that. Doesn't do that. It's just that. Back and forth. Okay? It's going to feel a little different. Now, what are you noticing in order to keep this as you get up to this part of the keyboard you need to do? Yes, there's flexibility here in your upper body, right? So you have to be very supple in the way that your body is able to move. But in general, we want to keep that across the keyboard. Does that make sense? I don't want this. You guys ever seen those circle pianos where you stand in the middle and you play like this? Those are cool. And the way you're playing an arpeggio is if you had a circle piano. More like, almost like, kind of like a little curved piano, technically, is where you are, right? It's not quite not that bad, but you've got to be able to maintain that angle. Otherwise, at some point along the line, your position changes. And even a fraction of an inch off is going to put you in the crack. You don't have a whole lot of wiggle room, right? So let's try this again. And I want you to focus on keeping this pendulum idea to the right, to the left, or driving a car, right? And then free up this upper body so that it doesn't get stuck, okay? Let's try it. Now lead with the elbows. Come on, elbow. There it goes. There it goes. Did you feel all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I got a job to do, right? Otherwise, it just stays here. If the elbow stays in, it turns. It has to lead. Okay? Try that again. Now I want you to play with a slightly louder sound. Play stronger sound the whole way. And I want you to lead with those elbows. Again. Yes, good. Lead. You were behind for about that long, okay? So I'm going to help you this time, okay? Ready, set, go. Lead. And shift. Lead. Yes. Oh, I got a little strange for a second, but yes, that's already better. Okay, now stand for a moment. I want you, don't go away. Okay? Now, here's what I was seeing in the beginning. And I want this. Part of it is the pacing. We got to get comfortable with the pacing. But also it's the engagement in the finger. And that's why I usually teach that arpeggios are best learned with a slightly fuller sound and touch. So if it's too soft, it's naturally going to just retract a little. So I want to more engage. Okay, again, lead with that elbow. Last time. You got this. 100%. Close. We're getting there. You got to focus a little bit more, I think, on these two fingers, because these ones, this is always strong, and then these ones are always a little bit less focused. Okay? So a little bit more energy in those, and work on the pendulum. But that'll help. Good, thank you. I appreciate you helping us out. I had a period of about 3 or 4 lessons where I was working on D flat arpeggio with Aaron Henry Fox, and I left every lesson crying harder than the one before. Because I couldn't get it down. And I was doing it at 172, and I just simply could not play it accurate. And I could if I went down to about 116, but it was a constant process of never getting it right. And then I think if my memory serves me right, it was her daughter, Christy. I happened to pop into her, and she mentioned this diamond arc technique idea. And boy, that really made it so much simpler. Okay? So, those are some of the things I think that'll help. Now, what arpeggios should you know? You should definitely know your major, minor, diminished, your augmented, your seventh as well, and you should know those, of course. You should know all of those, right? Anybody here worked on or taught the Warsaw Concerto? No, it's kind of a fun little concerto. It's an interesting little ditty of a piece. You know, they asked Rachmaninoff to write it, and he was like, I don't want to write this, and so they asked English composer to write it as if he was Rachmaninoff, and so that's what he created. But it's but it begins with these arpeggiations, and they're always such a pain. They're seventh arpeggios. I like to teach seventh arpeggios early, and I listened to a chapter from the Chopin book by Alan Walker. How many of you have read this? No? Yes? Good. I encourage every single person to get it. And if not, if you like to listen to audiobooks, get the one that's on Audible. It's read by Corey James. It's like 40 hours of listening, but it's still great. And honestly, I listen to it all the time. It's so fascinating to learn about his life. But he has an entire section, it's about 7 or 8 chapters, all about Chopin's own teaching methods and viewpoints on how the piano should be played. It's glorious.
What's the name of that book?
It's A Life in Times, but it's called Friedrich Chopin, A Life in Times by Alan Walker. And it is the most seminal scholarship ever done on Chopin. It took him 10 years to write, and of course this is after he spent, 20 years or so writing and creating the 3 or 4 list compendiums that he did, of course, before that. Now, moving on, arpeggio yoga. I think I was really tired when I made these presentations. It's so fun. But anyway, you should do some exercises to work on that stretching. This is something that we could have done together, but you could do things like feel the spacings like this. If you feel like those spacings are a little bit uncomfortable for your hand. Now, I generally say don't do this, right? I don't want you straining. The process of playing an arpeggio is always a smooth, fluid one. Another thing is you could get to that pivot finger, and you could go back and forth, right? Very loosely. You can do some circles, concentric circles, so the hands are just moving around. Suppleness and freedom and flow is so, so important. You can shadow play, where we're just focusing, again, on that same motion we were talking about, right? We're getting comfortable with this. The fingers are moving. Maybe you can touch the tops of the keys, but it's more so about focusing your eyes and your physical awareness on, am I doing this? Or am I totally focused just on fingertips and notes? I want that. I want the actual physical way of approaching it. Okay. Okay. Book break. So this is what I was mentioning just a moment ago. How many of you got some great books at home on piano technique? Things that you really like. I want to hear what some of your favorites are. Anything that you really enjoy using?
With your own 2 hands.
With your own 2 hands. Is that right?
Bernstein.
Seymour Bernstein. Amazing player. Love his teaching. So great. And he's got a lot of really great YouTube videos out now. I think he did a ton for Tone Bass, along with Ben and Paul, which are great. Any others? No? Okay, so this is why this is here. You might think, well, I need to know more about techniques. Show me the actual techniques. You guys, there are so many books out there written by the greatest people who've ever played this piano, or some of the best teachers. Okay? So that book, I mentioned a little about Madeline Brewster. I like that book. I think it's nice. I have my students read through it. There's so many others. The Art of the Piano by Heinrich Neuhaus is another great one. It's a really, I think, a seminal book on Russian piano technique. His writing style's funny. It's interesting. So a little bit outdated, but it's great. There's Walter Giesecke's book, The Piano Technique. Of course, it's the guy who pretty much premiered and played a lot of Debussy's music. And of course, there's the Friedrich Chopin book that I just mentioned a moment ago, Life and Times. It's massive, by the way, it's like that. I remember he gave the keynote presentation at MTNA National the year either the year he published it or the year after. And I ran into him just before, and I said, "Can I get a signature?" And he says, "Oh, do you have my book?" And I said, "I do." And I hadn't put it in my bag. And I thought, all I've got is this blank sheet of paper. And he wrote on it, he wrote a staff, and he wrote out the first notes of this. He says, "If you can tell me what this is, you can keep this." And it was, what is it?
Chopin B minor sonata.
Correct. Sonata number 3, right? I didn't let it. Anyway, yes, so I got it right, and I got the signature. But he held on to it like, you aren't getting this unless you answer correct. But yes, that's my favorite book. I love that book so much. And Cora James does a great job reading it. And then, of course, Joseph Levine, Basic Principles in Pianoforte. Do you know who those two people are? One of them, obviously, is Joseph. Who's the other? Rosina Levine, Ben Clyburne's teacher, along with the teacher of so many others. He was the head of Juilliard. Of course, she taught at Juilliard for a long time as well. But it's a small book. It's only about that thick, but it offers really great practical, physical advice on playing the instrument in a healthy way, in a strong way, developing a romantic Russian-like tone, which, of course, at the time, had led the world in piano playing. And it was such a shock to the world, of course, when Van Cliburn went and won the Tchaikovsky competition, because this is America during the Cold War, coming into Russia and winning this, right? But, of course, he's being taught by a Russian piano teacher who understood that sound and that technique. All right, so, get some books. There's so many great things. If you need suggestions, let me know. I actually have a really great piano list book that I give to all my students. If you like, I can go ahead and maybe add that to our website for today's proceedings. But just things that you should know, things on pedaling, things on fingering, things on, stylistic treatment in various periods, right? Those are all really good resources for you. Okay, this is a quote from Chopin. If you didn't know much about Chopin, he was a little bit crass, and he definitely did not have the same respect for any of his contemporaries that they had for him. But this is one of his that he had. His opinion on everyone else in Paris besides himself, pretty much. I won't read it. It's so funny. But essentially, it was this idea of finger equalization school. How many of you have some Czerny books at home? Anybody have? Yeah? Fantastic. What's the primary goal of Czerny exercises? What are we trying to build?
Everything to be strong. Fingers
Strong.
of equal quality.
Exactly. School of velocity, right? Art finger dexterity, right? And this was the main thought of pretty much everyone in Paris at the time. Didn't matter if it was Hertz, Thalberg, Tausig, Liszt, Leschetizky, all of them believed in this finger equalization school. And it all comes back to, well, mostly this man at the top. Carl Czerny, right? Often considered sort of the father of like modern piano technique in many ways, at least for that school. But as you can see, there's so many people who are on this list. Who was Czerny's teacher? One of his most important ones, Beethoven. Also on the other side, Clementi. Okay? So we had some pretty impressive teachers in this pedigree. Okay? And of course, Beethoven and Clementi, they're extremely famous pianists, great for their technique. So I had a big influence on Czerny. Now, Czerny published like a gajillion technical books and everything else. We almost never play any of his actual pieces because they just lack imagination and musical beauty. But certainly, they developed the hands, and it's evident by the fact that nearly every one of these people, and it's really hard to tell, I'm so sorry it didn't come out great, are important luminaries in piano, right? As you can see, Rachmaninoff over here. We see names like, obviously, there's Franz Liszt here. Leschetizky, the two most important studios of all of Europe at the time were Liszt and Leschetizky. And often, when we look through our piano pedigrees, we usually go through one of those two. Chopin, pretty much a barren tree. He had a few really great students, but Chopin was much more interested in teaching aristocratic young ladies who would pay him a lot and would pick him up to bring him to their house. So, bring a carriage and pay me a lot of money. That was pretty much his stipulation. So he needed it. He had incredible expenses, partly for his way of living, but also because of his conditions and the treatments that he had to pay for. Now, if I think about my own Pedagogy pretty much goes through those lines. You can see Leshetitsky here in the middle as well as on that side. This is through an Iron Curry Fox line. These two are through Barlow Bradford. This one, funny enough, is interesting. It goes through an organ line coming from Bach. So you can see Kittel, you can see Vidor here, Alexander Schreiner, and then Bob Kundek, and working with Barlow Bradford and myself. And I had organ lessons as well as piano lessons. So I got to put both on there. But you can see Schnabel, Gladstone, Leshetitsky, Cherny, Beethoven, and so forth, going back, right? Now, why do I mention this? Our technique is often built off the backs of so many years and years and years of pedagogical influence and study. And whether you're a perfect representation of, your great-great-grandfather or grandmother of playing, that's part of it. And I think it's really important to understand, honor that, and maybe even study it if it's someone who is a part of your teaching. For example, how many of you know you go through Leshetitsky or Liszt? Yeah, fantastic. Have you studied anything on Leshetitsky's playing and writing and teaching? Yeah, a little bit here and there. I think it's really important. There are great resources out there to learn how did he teach. Why was it important? Anybody know anything about Liszt's studio? No?
Taught in groups,
Mm-hmm.
master class.
Yeah, he did master classes, much like this. He often gave free lessons to so many different students. You guys notice an error up there? I've always been curious if there's errors in this. I'm curious if there's anything wrong. But I think it's so important to study this as much as you can. Arthur Schnabel, right? First person to ever record all 32 Beethoven sonatas. And if you've ever listened to his recordings, they're fantastic from the point that there's mistakes everywhere. And I love it. But the tempos are brave. They're impressive. And I think, was it you who was saying the more we get to a modern digital age, the more imperfection becomes desirable? I don't know if it was you or someone else, but someone said it. But I think we are getting to a point where we're starting to get to almost a sterile point of like everything has to be perfect. And we're losing a little bit of that desire to just simply play with emotion and passion. And I love going back to Schnabel's recordings and hearing some really fun things to listen and to go back and look at this. Now, let's get back to playing some things. Octaves. Who's the, I shouldn't say king, who's the queen of octaves? Argerich, yeah. You guys know who Martha Argerich is? Yeah. So she's still out there playing and performing today. Her first big win on the international stage was in 1960 at the Chopin competition. She won first place. She must have been like 18 or 19. And of course now she's in her 80s and still performing for large crowds. She likes to perform collaborative or concerto rather than solo because she finds it lonely on the stage. I mean, I would if I was on the stage for 60 plus years in the largest light possible. But her octaves are unbelievable. Just do a quick search for Martha Argerich octaves, and you'll see a video. It's a compilation of all of her octaves. No one has ever played them louder or faster or more simple ever since, right? But I think it's important to talk about octaves. When you play an octave, it should be done one of three ways. Either with very loose wrists, and generally light. It's not something that should be heavy. You're going to strain yourself if you're trying to go really heavy with only wrists. If you just play with arms and a lot of power and firm fingertips, this is going to give you a big sound. I think at the end of the, big huge sound, right? That's a lot of big arm sound. But if you need to go faster, you need both power and speed. You need a little bit more wrist and arm together. So part of what I was just doing there in order to make that work is I had to loosen up the arms. It's already 3:04, and I'm practically out of time. I'm just realizing how late it is. Okay, we probably need to get going so we can move forward to our next thing,
we're
right?
going in the concert hall.
Okay, fantastic. So I'll just wrap up by saying this. When it comes to technique, there are so many different things that we can do to strengthen our hands, to strengthen our finger independence. I think etudes, when you get enough skill and comfort, should be a part of your learning at all times. Always just have an etude. Even if you work on it for a month or 2 or 3, have an etude. Move on to another one. This is the main place in which we learn technical knowledge is through etude work. And it keeps our scales strong. It keeps our arpeggiation strong. We learn all of these things through actual pieces. And then it's a really fun one. Learn to play in the dark. Seems like a silly thing, but I would not be able to play the middle part immediately strong if I had not learned to play it in the dark. I had to learn to do it by feel. Oh, here's the sound. And then number 10, smile. Have fun. Don't get upset at yourself if it's a struggle. It's a struggle for all of us. We keep working at it, but you'll get there. Okay. Correct technical procedures is where it's all at. Start with making sure it's done correctly, and then you'll make much more progress than simply putting in more time and hours. Okay? Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.